today on Online for Authors, I am chatting with Megan Mary, author of The Dream Dimensions, as part of her big book launch. So welcome, Megan.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here again.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I really loved the first one that I read. I'm sure I haven't had a chance to read this one yet, but I'm super excited to get that onto my reading list. Before we really dive in, though, why don't you give us a quick little elevator pitch? What are people going to find when they open up the cover of The Dream Dimensions?
Absolutely. So here is The Dream Dimensions. This is the first hardcover copy. The rest are still in the mail. So, during a magical ritual, Hannah Sky receives a prophetic message, and she then encounters a series of 7 riddles that lead her to discover that there is more to her ancestry than she ever imagined. Meanwhile, someone has been following her, lurking in the shadows. As she works to decipher the prophecy before Halloween night, Hannah discovers and confronts the destructive force that influenced the course of her life. A tale of ancestral healing, this fall-themed final installation of the Witches of Maple Hollow trilogy brings together mystery, astronomy, alchemy, and dreams to illuminate dimensions beyond time and space.
Now, if that doesn't sound like a good read, guys, what does, right? So what I want to know right away is if someone has not read your first 2, which is the Dream Haunters and then the Dream Mirrors, can they read the Dream Dimensions without having to go back and get the first 2?
It's like they can, but I wouldn't recommend it because there's spoilers of yeah. So there's spoilers of book 1 and 2 in 3.
Okay.
So you might as well not. And they're short enough that you can read them all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was one of the things. So because this is a series and it really does kind of follow one then the other, why don't we get kind of a quick overview as well of book 1, which is the Dream Haunters, and then book 2, the Dream Mirrors. What are we going to find in those?
Yes. So in book 1, we meet Hannah Sky, and she's a young woman in search of meaning, and she receives a cryptic letter from her missing and eccentric Aunt Julia. And she's been having a recurring dream about a pumpkin patch, and she doesn't understand what it means. And she ends up traveling to the island of eternal autumn called Maple Hollow to research what has happened to her aunt. And while she's there, she stays at the illustrious Sky Manor and realizes that her family legacy is much different than what she thought. And so all of the books feature a lot of dream scenes. We're going in and out of waking and dreams, but there's also a lot of whimsical moments. There's a talking cat dream guide named Wixby, who was the inspiration for the series in a dream that I had over 10 years ago. And we get a lot of different talking animals and also your fair share of spookiness, but in a cozy way, not in
not in a terrifying way. I don't do horror, guys, and I liked this. So this is good. Yeah. And then what happens in book 2? What do we see there with the Dream Mirrors?
In book 2, it's Mercury retrograde again. So all 3 books take place during Mercury retrograde, and it's the night of the 999 portal. So book 1 and 3 take place at Halloween. Book 2 just takes place in September. And there is a dinner party happening at Sky Manor, but something goes terribly wrong and dinner guests are starting to disappear. And there's a new sinister force, different from book 1. And Hannah must discover what has made her friend, her guest, fall ill. And she really needs to start delving more into her dreams, using her dream journal, figuring out how to understand the messages in her dreams. And so the second book is really a lot about portals and mirrors and the metaphors of identity and vanity and the illusion of reality.
Fantastic. You do things with dreams outside of your writing. You also help people interpret dreams and other things. Is that why you have this play such a big part in your books?
Yes, absolutely. And dreams were part of my spiritual awakening. So they have been a huge part of everything that I do out in the world. So I work as a dream worker with women and I do private sessions one on one, helping them understand their dreams. And the method that I invented to do that is called the Dream Mirror Method. And so that is really taught in book 2 through the story with Hannah.
So if someone wanted to know more about what you do in real life, then book 2 is going to give them that feel for what, when they walk away from book 2, do they know more about how to interpret their own dreams?
Yes, definitely. Yes. It does give you, it does, you learn throughout the trilogy
Right,
through Hannah's experiences. And so
right.
everything she learns metaphysically, you learn. And it really is a lot like the Celestine prophecy in that sense, because it's a pilgrimage journey and you're discovering as she's discovering, and there's many layers of esoteric knowledge hidden within the books for people that are seeking a bit more.
Right, right. And for those who just want a really good story, they've got a really good story. Those who want to understand a little bit more about themselves and dreams and how those tie together, they can find that as well.
Yes,
So this is the last book
it
of
is.
the Hollow series. Is that correct?
Yes,
Oh, I kind of feel sad about that. I
I
like
know everybody
characters.
does. It's like, the Lord of the Rings was great at 3, so
Right,
it's 3 is one of my favorite numbers. So and I really set out to complete all 3 within 365 days, which was a huge goal for me. And so I wanted it to have closure.
yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm not going to write ever again, but and it doesn't mean that the thread of Maple Hollow ends either, because I think that there's so much to do with this. I have plans to maybe make guided meditations that take people to Maple Hollow, and different courses that teach the different aspects of metaphysics that are being taught in the book. So there's going to be a lot more, even though the books themselves are complete.
Coming to an end. I am curious. You had this need to write these 3 books in 365 days, which, by the way, oh my goodness, that is an undertaking. To do that, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? Like, did you know from the beginning where book 3 was going to end, or did
Nope.
it just kind of came to you as you went?
Yep.
Wow. So,
No, I did not.
so guys, just so you know, to be a pantser and write 3 consecutive books that flow together with no plan is astounding. It's absolutely astounding.
Thank you. And no, I didn't have a plan at all. I didn't even really have a plan when it came to the first one. I write in 500-word increments, little spurts, and I write in Scrivener. And so I can rearrange them like a puzzle however I want. And that's pretty much what I did. I tried to, in the third one, because I really wanted it to be impactful and to maintain the suspense, I did a little bit of the save the cat,
Yeah.
where I said, okay, I know I have to make sure the arc is here, that there's this, that there's these pieces, but I never wrote an outline. I never did anything like that. So I didn't really know how it was going to end till it ended. And then I even revised that. So once it got to
Right.
editing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am a pantser as well. And so I understand that feeling. And I actually, Save the Cat is the only one that I can use at all
Yeah.
when I'm trying to. And even then, sometimes the structure gets in my way.
Yeah.
I tend to just, I don't know, it comes to me. And so I'm writing what comes to me. And in the end, I'm always so surprised. It's like, oh, wow, didn't that just work out so beautifully?
Oh, there were so many surprises as I was doing this.
Yeah.
I wanted to include astronomy and Halloween. And I was thinking, these things don't really go together. How am I going to make them go together? Well, as I started doing the research, blow me over, I found out, oh boy, do they go together.
Right.
They, in fact, have this historic connection that I didn't even know. And so I was just continually blown away as I was getting further down the rabbit hole with the story. It
I
was
love
leading
that.
me.
Yeah, I love that. I do the same thing with the research, that idea that you're looking, you're just looking for things like, I need to understand about this, I need to understand about that. And all of a sudden, something pops up, this tidbit comes up, and you think, oh my goodness, I can use that. That's going to be the pivot point of my book. I think that's why I like being a pantser, is because it allows me to just, I don't know, it's like you just go with the feeling. And then when you find that piece, I'm as excited as a reader who gets to that point and says, oh my goodness.
Yes, that's exactly how it was for me. Yes.
Absolutely.
And even when I was doing the numerology section, I was like waiting to see what is it going to be when she plugs in her name. And I was like, oh my God, of course, So, I mean, there were so many of those. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a little surprised to hear about research. For some reason, I just assumed that you were going to know everything there was to know about all of these things that you're writing about. So let's talk about your research. I know personally that, like, if I were to go and try to look up, like, what did my dream mean last night? I can find 62 things that my dream meant last night, and I'm not sure that any of them are true. So when you're doing your research, how are you making sure that what you're finding is an accurate representation versus just the stuff you find out on the internet?
Yeah. So it wasn't so much about the dream work that I was
Right.
doing the research on. It was more the metaphysical aspects, because I was completing my bachelor's in metaphysics. Now I'm working on my master's and PhD. And part of that study, all of those studies were happening while I was writing the trilogy. And so that's really the research
Right.
that I'm referring to. And so when I just held over the weekend the launch party for book 3, and at that party I revealed the 13 divinations of Maple Hollow, and those are just some, but there's at least 13 forms of divination that I discovered that are in the book. And so that's really that. And the chakra system is very much underlaid in the plot. And there just there's so many things that I was studying
Right.
that came out in the story, including the connection between Halloween and astronomy, which I won't reveal.
No, don't reveal anything that people should go read. But
Yes.
I love though that the things that you're learning for your own benefit are then falling into the book as well, and that they become part of what you provide with other people. So I think that's fabulous. You say you write in 500 word increments.
Mm-hmm.
So do you write every day? Do you write several times every day? How does this 500 thing work for you?
Once a day.
Once a day?
Yeah. So I was writing, my goal was 500 words. You know, you can set that in Scrivener. Sometimes it would be twice that, but I wouldn't expect more than that of myself, so that I could get 2,500 in a week, 10,000 in a month.
Right.
And I had it set to that if I did at least that, I would be able to complete book 2 by halfway to Halloween, book 3 by the year anniversary of book 1. Right. So I would only make myself do it on weekdays. I kind of, if I find the time on the weekend, great, but it's usually, just those weekdays, and then kind of first thing in the morning after I meditate, so that I'm still remembering my dream world and still not as distracted with all the daytime ruminations.
So what does your meditation practice look like before you write? Is it something specific? Do you do the same thing every day? Do you do something different?
No, I'm a teacher on Insight Timer, and so I use Insight Timer a lot, and I will go on there and let it suggest something to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'll see what comes up at the beginning, and I'm like, okay, that's what I need to hear today. And so it's kind of a little game that I play. I don't know what I'm going to be listening to, but I let myself be open to receiving whatever message I need to hear.
I love that. And I like that idea of like becoming open before you write. One of the things that helps me is I like to go out and like walk in nature and
Hmm.
just be outside. And my first part of my walk is usually more of a storming kind of thing where I'm just like, everything in my mind is just going like this. But by the time I'm done walking, I've settled myself.
Yeah.
And now my brain is, I just feel like it's open. I feel like that piece of creativity where my creativity lives, it's no longer cluttered and I can get to it. And then I love to sit down and write right after I take a walk. So it's probably a similar thing to meditation. I'm not good at sit still meditation. I'm only really good at lots of movement meditations. So
Hmm.
I find that I meditate best when I swim, when I walk, those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Walking meditations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do love walks in nature. That's usually more towards the end of my day, though.
Yeah.
So they're kind of at bookends.
Yeah. I understand that. What do you hope people take away from these books beyond, hey, this is a great story?
I absolutely hope that these books become something that people return to and read every year when this time of year comes around, and that they see them as guideposts on their spiritual journey. And it's not from a religious standpoint, but from a mystical standpoint, that they really awaken a curiosity in people and a validation and a resonance of their inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly book two they all are very empowering to women and validating in terms of believing in yourself and valuing yourself and learning to understand yourself better and capturing and harnessing that inner wisdom and that inner power that we all have, but also to raise the spiritual intelligence in this world of great awakening where we understand that this 3D reality is not all that there is,
Okay.
and that we're living in an energetic field that we influence much more than we understand that we do, and that there's so much more than what we can perceive with the five senses.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Um, you say, so we're done with this. You've got other ideas that you're going to keep going. You said you're not done writing though. Do you have
Yeah.
another idea? Do you have something else that's kind of your
Yeah,
next big thing?
I do. I have more than one idea, of course, but um, I was going to start writing a nonfiction book on dreams
Mhm.
when the whole thing happened for me and I had to start writing this. And so now I am going to go back and start writing that book that I was going to write on dreams. And so it's going to be a nonfiction book,
Mhm.
the title of which has already been decided and is hidden in book two.
Oh, awesome. So guys, read
Yes.
book two so that you know what it's going to be.
Yes, and so that will be next, but I'm not putting a timeline on that because I already completed my race against time, and now I'm gonna take my time with my studies and do that. But I know that there's gonna be more fiction in the future for me. It's just, I'm gonna enjoy the ride.
Right, absolutely. When in terms of fiction, when you do more, do you think it will be more of this mystery, mystic kind of a vibe going on as well?
Very possibly. Yeah. I mean, at least the ideas. I actually came across a stapled together piece of paper from years ago that had a whole other series information in it. And I had forgotten about it. And I was like, oh my God, I just laid it all out right there.
Right there
Okay.
it is. Yep.
Well, we're gonna have to wait a little while for that. Um, But yeah, there is definitely something, and it will be, let's just say, an offshoot of this. So,
okay. Fantastic. Yeah. So I know a lot of people will look at these books and say, well, these are Halloween books. And so let's assume that someone is listening to this podcast in January or in April. Yeah. And they think, oh, yeah, but this is a Halloween book. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So definitely not. I would say that it's much more along the lines of the Celestine Prophecy, if you know that book, because it can be read year round. It just because it takes place in an island of eternal autumn doesn't mean that it has any, there's so much more to it. So it really is a spiritual journey and an adventure. Right. And it's uplifting. And I think that for me is what makes it so different from all the other Halloween quote unquote books out there. Because when I tell people I like Halloween, they're like, oh yeah, horror and gore and scary. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Yeah. Because for me, I'm coming from the Celtic heritage perspective of Samhain and the turning of the year. And it's a much more ancient tradition. So it's not about that. It's about self-discovery. Right. And learning about yourself, understanding that we are spirits having a human experience, and that our experience can be so much more different when we discover the truth about ourselves. And so it really is uplifting fiction, which I feel is very important in today's world. It's cozy and it's clean. There's no swearing, there's no violence, there's no romance. It's something that will leave you contemplating. Yeah. So very thought-provoking, and it's also heartwarming. Yeah.
Fantastic. And just so that I know, before I read the third book, does everything kind of wrap up nicely, or yes. Are you an author that leaves it all open-ended?
No, it wraps up nicely.
Oh, I like that. That makes me feel really good. I always have trouble with the ones that leave me wondering what just happened. Yeah. You know, I don't know. I like neat bows. And so that's
it's got a neat bow. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, hey guys, if you head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook, you're going to have an opportunity to win a digital copy of this book, The Dream Dimensions. What you have to do is tell me something you liked or learned while listening to this podcast, and you will be in the drawing. So, Mary, if someone wanted to, not Mary, Megan, I've done that.
Everybody does that. It's okay.
I hate that I did that, and especially live. I'm so sorry. Megan, if someone wants to get up with you and talk with you more about your books or about dreams and the things that you do with that and women, how do they reach you? What's the best place to find you?
Yes, you can find me at meganmary.com. And on my site, you can book a session with me one-on-one for the dream work. You can also find a self-paced dream decoding course on there. I have my podcast, Women's Dream Enlightenment, which is about dreams, deep discussions, and spiritual awakening. And of course, I have the trilogy, which is also available in audiobook, narrated by award-winning British narrator Pearl Hewitt. And she makes it just an amazingly comforting fairy tale experience when you listen to the audiobooks.
That sounds wonderful. And I love a good British voice. So I'll bet that is just beautiful to hear. All right, guys. So you heard that. Head right on over. All those links that she talked about, everything will be in the show notes. So just run right to the show notes. You can follow her on some of her socials as well. And when you get the book, make sure that you review it, because as authors, we love a good review. And I want to thank you so much for being with me today, Megan.
Thank you for having me here again, Terry. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the fact that you are reading the trilogy, because that makes it so much more impactful for me as an author to be able to have this conversation. So yes, I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And good luck with this launch. And I really look forward to what you do next.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.